Hey, good morning, David, John, Ray, Arthur, Al, Michael. Morning, everybody. If you want to chat with me, make sure you're a subscriber. Just hit the subscribe button. A couple seconds later, you'll be able to chat on the live stream. And while you're at it, you might as well hit the bell with the little hashtag thinger or the little quote thingers. Turn it on to all notifications so you get notified when I go live every single morning. And on Tuesday evenings, yesterday, went live for at least 30 minutes of awesome chart analysis where you get to request the charts. And you know what? We went for over an hour last night, and so covered tons and tons of charts. Everything from Apple, Google, Netflix to obscure names that I'd never even looked at before. So tons of stuff, tons of content. You want to go watch that, check it out after this video. It's right there in the playlist, or right there on the live stream tab in for yesterday. Yeah, it's 30 minutes of awesome. So, all right, let's get started today. All trading involves a substantial risk of loss. Past performance, not necessarily indicative of future results. I could be full of crap, never predict anything right ever again. This presentation here, informational, educational, and fun, not a recommendation to buy or sell any financial instrument out there. If you desire personal financial advice, you need to hire and consult a financial advisor. Has a fiduciary duty to take care of you and your financial situation. Something just flew in my eye, and we're inside, so that's kind of weird. Morning, Valerie. Glad to have everybody here. Now, I brought some fun stuff today. Let's go ahead and click over here, and click over here, and then drag over the chart, or drag over the other stuff. So, hedge funds had to turn in their 13 Fs yesterday, file them with the SEC. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the 13F, that's kind of like, what transactions did we do last quarter? And those were technically due yesterday. Doesn't mean everybody got them in. But it looks like big tech and specifically AI were the leaders in the buying. We also have some Salesforce, Netflix, and, all the things that were kind of popping. Imagine that, right? So we could see, right there, Occidental Petroleum was the most purchased stock. You know why? Because, well, I imagine it's on the back of Buffett buying a big position. Everybody thinking that the market's kind of turning and oil's going to pop. And then, you know what happens? Rip the oil. Oil starts dropping. We can look at Oxy. But it's not been the performer right there. So despite chasing hedge funds, it may not be the best strategy to chase hedge funds. So it's interesting. Yeah, the Drunken Miller's family office looks like doubled its stake in NVIDIA. Top performer. That's pretty good performance. And let's see what else we got. Added a new larger position in Microsoft. Makes up 9% of the firm's roughly $2.3 billion portfolio. Nice. Microsoft, of course, had the $10 billion investment in OpenAI. Let's see. We have another new position in NVIDIA, valued at $41.7 million. Chump change, right, Beth? And let's see. Then we have unloading $1 billion of SVB as it collapsed. And then Berkshire Hathaway eliminated Bank Corp and Bank of New York Mellon in its holdings. Interesting. We have KRE ETF. That was an interesting goose if you're listening in. 13.47 million KRE ETF shares long. And 2.3 million shares. And yeah, that's a bunch of shares into KRE. So, and then biggest bear on the stock market investor group selling. So those couple funds sold shares of KRE. So working on down through here. Looks like some other stuff. So some other summary. We have $37.5 million into Nikola, but the stock fell 44%. 20.89 million shares into Calaravita. However you say that, I don't know. Stock was up 13%. Meta Platforms, Seeing $4.64 billion dumped into it. Nice. Let's see. Continuing to sell off Snowflake. Well, it's been a crap performer, so it makes sense. Saudi family into EA. George Soros jumping into Rivian. And then also sold off its entire stake in Tesla. And let's see, Vanguard, let's see. The Walton family, that's Walmart's family. Looks like they went into $38 billion. Holy moly. Bought more shares of the nearly, oh, that's the value of the short-term bond ETF. So they bought shares into the bond ETF. Looks like their stake was $10 million. I was like, $38 billion into the bonds. They made a $10 million stake into the short-term bond ETF. And sold SVB. That's gone. So looks like TCI sold 31 million shares of Alphabet. May have been the down pressure we saw initially, and now we're recovering off of that sale. Let's see, Meson Capital added 674 million shares of Occidental. And Exodus added 1.01 million. Charles Schwab, 9.5 million into Charles Schwab. 15.18 million into Clara, however you say that thing, Claravita. Morning, everybody. Morning. Pat, Kevin, Francois, Goose. I knew you were here. Let's see. Added 4.29 million shares into Meta right there. 36.8 million shares into Nikola right there. That adds on top of whoever else was up here. Yeah. I guess that was just a piece. No. Yeah. So so two funds were responsible for that 37.54 million shares of Nikola. Obviously, Antara went heavy into Nikola. I don't know if that's a smart idea or not. And Microsoft was cut or reduced by 185 investors. So not a lot of people betting on Microsoft, oddly enough. I'm not sure why. And then Occidental Petroleum was the most valuable holding at $43.28 billion on the hedge funds. And we'll look at OXY. Interesting stuff. So jumping down to today, what we can expect. Look at this. This kind of starts on May 10th, a week ago. Downtrend of highs, downtrend of highs, downtrend of highs. We need to get up through this 41.45 to 41.50 area. Probably need to break above that monthly pivot right there. The weekly pivot coming in right almost exactly where the weekly pivot was last week. Just not moving at all, like I keep saying. When we get the weekly pivot come in at the same place the weekly pivot was the week before, that means we've essentially had 2 weeks staying in the exact same range. I mean, we're only different by pennies here. We need some expansion of range. It's going to come. That's how we make money in the markets, is stuff moving. So look at this. After the close, we had a variety of stuff. Copart, Next Gen. Then before the open today, Target, TJX, Jack in the Box, Wix, WalkMe, all these out this morning. Tonight, this afternoon, after the close, Cisco, D-Locals, SQM, Stone, T2, Synopsys, Boot Barn, and Beth, there you go. Boot Barn, we'll see if it's moving. Then tomorrow before the open, we'll talk about them tomorrow. Walmart, Grab, Canadian Solar, we'll see what's moving tomorrow. So, on to the charts. What can we actually look at here? So S&P 500 just stuck in the range sideways is what I expect to continue. Now, interestingly enough, we keep drifting off lower on the S5FI as we churn sideways. So more and more stocks on the S&P 500 dropping below their 50-day moving average as we just churn sideways, which if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense. Churning sideways, the moving average catches up to you and you can drift below it very easily. So we have definitely been churning sideways for almost 50 days now. So everything kind of flattening out. ES, showing a little bit of green this morning, and we may go back to the top of the range again. We've been topping out right up here. That would be a beautiful thing to see that breakout of that downtrend and pop up. NQ continues its march higher. I don't expect it to let up until we get to that August high. So still betting on NASDAQ going higher, at least to the resistance. Russell just chopping in the bottom of the range. Still, I need to pull this box on over here like this. Till we can get out of this box, we're just going to continue being in the box. So that's just, there's nothing to, you could trade for the top, but obviously the last, 6, 7, 8 days, we haven't even made an attempt at the top. So sitting at the bottom, that's kind of bearish, and we could break down very easily. Be careful on the Russell. CL just chopping in the box, the support box. I do expect kind of a spike down and test this zone down here. It would be bullish to do that if we held this zone. Now, if we break down below about 66, we're probably heading down to 59 on oil. And speaking of oil, let's just go ahead and pull up OXY. Look, I mean, this thing, everybody piling in, and look what it did. It's ripped the funds. I mean, and it would not surprise me to get a lower low here. This is a rip the funds kind of trade. Our buddy who runs Berkshire Hathaway went heavy into it, announced it. Everybody was like, "Ooh, hype! Occidental. That's got to be the great investment." But you gotta keep him time frame in mind. For Warren Buffett, he's investing in 10, 15 year turnaround time frame. He's investing in the fact that right now the U.S. is not drilling for oil. They're not producing oil, and so he's investing in this with the idea that we're going to create a problem and need oil, and Occidental is going to be positioned to be one of the companies that benefits from the squeeze, the shortage that is likely to occur because of what's now turned into like 3-4 years of underinvestment in oil production. That's going to catch up with us here eventually, and so this is a much longer term trade. This is not like a swing trade. This is not, these are long position trades, long-term position trades, but we could see this drift off lower, maybe come down and retest these lows from back here before we see a base form on this thing and a breakout. I can't even get it to click. There we go. So that's kind of the floor right now. Now, if we break down below that, we could get down into the 30s, and I'm sure that Warren Buffett would be accumulating more if we did that sort of thing. Bitcoin continues to churn at the low end of the range. Pull this range over. See, I think we're going to come down here and test the roadmap line. I really do. It just seems likely. We were getting a little rally last night, but now we're getting a drift off. Dollar showing a little strength, potentially breaking back up. Gonna go retest the roadmap line. We'll see what happens. That can add to a little bit of weakness in the stock market. Stuff that's actually moving today. Keys, look at that, popping right back up to the roadmap line. It was up here on the last earnings, gap down, crush. This earnings popping up, but we still have that gap. Nice big fat gap. And that's going to be resistance. Now you could trade to the top of the resistance. It tried once, twice, 3 times, my lady, to break out and then crushed. Couldn't get back up into the range, couldn't get back up into the range, down, made it to earnings, right back up to that range. Can it break up in? We're going to see what it does. Now, it, somewhat bullish, probably rally up to here, and then likely to find more resistance because, well, it tried 3 times and then fell out of bed. Has not been able to break up out of that range. I would be very cautious. And this left a giant gap here when it opens up today. ARGX, yeah, beautiful. Working toward that target right up there. And even if we move it over to the current fibs, that's going to be still the same ballpark area. Right around 428 would be the target on ARGX. Wix. And popping a little bit. It's been kind of in this sloppy channel here. Very sloppy channel. Kind of an expanding megaphone type. You know, getting a little higher, a little lower. Rally back up into this 105 area would be my expectation at this point. But breaking out, you know, we have to zoom out a bit. It's got a long way to go to break out. So getting above 110 could be a breakout signal. But when you zoom out like that, it's just kind of consolidating, drifting higher, consolidating at the lows. It does make money. Not a lot of money, but it does make some money. SGEN. Little poppy choppy action here on the attempt to break out. It's a pharmaceutical. It does gappy stuff. I wouldn't bet on it doing anything. This has been the top for a number of years. We can retrace the roadmap line very easily and even go back to the bottom of the range. Let's see, Western Alliance Bancorp. This has opportunity to rally back to the roadmap line. Now, I don't know. Just kind of chopping in the range so far. Keep getting these freak out spikes. The banking crisis is not over yet. We don't have it all clear. I would be careful. Probably going to continue to have banking problems the rest of the year until possibly the interest rates let up, but I'm not sure they're going to, so the banking problems will continue. DT potentially breaking out over these highs. That can be bullish for continuation. And the target, run the baby, up around 50, 51. Possibly as high as 54. But we do have this prior high right over here that may provide some resistance right there. Watch out for a reaction there before it can pop up to that 50 area. NVIDIA trying to break out super hard. This looks really positive. The next resistance up here around 340, 330, 340 area right over there comes from where we rejected these highs. Getting close. We're going to come up into some major resistance here, and we could get a turn down and a retrace back to this area where we've been consolidating around 260, 270 before we can actually break out and go up to a potential target up in the 450, 460 area. When getting a little pop today, but looks like it's going to retrace to the roadmap line. Sure does. Tesla showing a little green pre-market. Not a lot of green, just a little green. Potential going to go back up to the roadmap line. If we can get above that. I kind of detailed this out last night. During 30 minutes of awesome. Up here's the target on the upside. Down here's the support on the downside. And the market is open. Cha-ching. TSM in a bit of a downtrend needs to get over this resistance to go higher. I mean, look at that choppy stuff right there. I mean, that big rejection, push down. We need to break back above that one, break back above that one. Then we could be looking for 103, 109 on the upside. Although SMH kind of showing that we could be breaking out here. This is an entry for SMH, targeting for 135, possibly 139. BNTX looks like it's practically down to the first target. The next target down below, 73. We've got COE now. Oh, look at that beautiful. Now breaking out, probably headed up to target up here around 521. Do you have a little resistance at 500? Probably going to 521. Beautiful. That's an entry. Let's see. Probably going to drop back to the roadmap line. Baidu. Got a few things dropping a little bit. Baidu just chopping. I'm not sure it's going to break out above the roadmap line. Sideways is the name of the game. We do have significant resistance up here and support down here. So just chopping in the range. MSTR. Coming down to the roadmap line. Already tried once. Going to try again. Just kind of following Bitcoin. DOCS. That looks pretty bad. Sideways to down. YINN. sideways. MAXN, probably coming back to visit the area where it broke out from here. See, it had the high here, consolidated, popped up, resistance, popped up, broke through, retest, pop up, probably to a 618 extension, maybe. Yep, 618 extension, look at that. And retrace right back to where it broke out from would be the classic move. Target probably right down in there, and it's just kind of coming into that. Probably going to do that before the next extension higher, or if it breaks back below this little blue line here, probably going to revisit the roadmap line. All right. Then HESM. Hess Midstream LP, just chopping. I mean, that's just chopping inside. Sideways. Potential watermelon seed squeeze deal, but just sideways is all I expect there. Bias for the day. Probably go retest the top of the range. Now, if for some crazy reason we actually broke out today, got above all these highs, we could run to 4,300. But catalyst, there's not really any huge catalyst coming up today. We have the debt ceiling thing, and we may just continue chopping sideways until it either blows up and we burn it down, or we get a resolution to the debt ceiling. So sideways chop, it's kind of what I expect. Be freaking careful though. The sideways chop can turn into expansion of volatility, like we saw right here. You know, this drop down and then pop up very quickly. We saw that range 1, 2, 3, 4 day range being, you know, from 40.60 up to 42.10. I mean, that's 150 point range in 4 days. So we can go from just chopping in a small range of 20, 30 points to, you know, expanding 100, 200 point range. So just be careful. Please be careful. Please don't sell those credit spreads close to the money if that's what you're going to do. All right? Please be careful. Make sure you give yourself some margin for this thing to expand the range. All right? That's a short, tight little spot we've been in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row. Almost a set of little dojis. You know, some of them are big bodies, but a lot of dojis in here. Be freaking careful. Over here, we hadn't seen that kind of consolidation in a while. And this is like the third time in a row we've done it. We consolidate here, we consolidate here, and we're consolidating right here. You know, each time has left, you know, has led to a little bit of move. This one can lead to a bigger move than what we've seen so far. The market tends to tighten the range. If you've played with Bollinger Bands at all, we tend to tighten the range, and then we expand the range. So those Bollinger Bands are going to be tightening up quite tight. That usually leads to a outsized move, expansion of the range. So be careful. The money you save may be your own, and I do expect NASDAQ, big tech, to charge right up here to the 13,700 area and find resistance. So watch out. When we get to that, we may get the reaction on S&P 500, and it may be a big down first. So keep an eye on that big tech, NASDAQ in particular. And you say, JT, I don't know how to pull up the futures. Well, that's cool. You can just look at NDX right here. When this gets up right near 13,700, this is the NASDAQ. Watch out. All right. If you just want to watch the QQQ chart, watch out for when it gets up to this area right here around 334, 335, where we topped out back in August. That's the things to watch. When we get to that, watch out. We're going to, more than likely, we're going to have a reaction, and it's probably going to be a pullback. And that pullback can be massive. We can go all the way back down to the roadmap line, somewhere right down in here, very quickly. Come all the way back to like 308. All right. That's the day. Watch out. Be careful. Like I said, the account you save may be your own. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the alert. for all notifications. I'm going live again tomorrow morning about 9:10 to talk about this stuff even more. What's moving, what's popping, what's dropping. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Enjoy your day. If you want to keep talking in Discord, links in the